Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
Should I begin?
Jai Guruji.
Hi, Jai Guruji Ekta. Good afternoon, everyone. Jai Guruji. So I'm just going to go back a little bit towards the back to the previous paragraph, so we get a clear perspective. So Sri Yukteswar's impartial justice was notably demonstrated during the summer vacation of my first college year. I welcome the opportunity to spend uninterrupted months at Serampur with my guru. You may be in charge of the hermitage. Master was pleased over my enthusiastic arrival. Your duties will be the reception of guests and supervision of the work of the other disciples. Kumar, a young villager from East Bengal, was accepted a fortnight later for hermitage training. Remarkably intelligent, he quickly won Sri Yukteswar's affection. For some unfathomable reason, Master was very lenient to the new resident. Mukunda, let Kumar assume your duties. Employ your own time in sweeping and cooking. Master issued these instructions after the new boy had been with us for a month. Exalted to leadership, Kumar exercised a petty household tyranny. In silent mutiny, the other disciples continued to seek me out for daily counsel. Mukunda is impossible. You made me supervisor, yet the others go to him and obey him. 3 weeks later, Kumar was complaining to our guru. I overheard him from an adjoining room. That's why I assigned him to the kitchen and you to the parlor. Sri Yukteswar's withering tones were new to Kumar. In this way, you have come to realize that a worthy leader has the desire to serve and not to dominate. This is so beautiful because we all have been given by Guruji, who is impartial to all of us, for our own karmic cleansing and purification. He has given each of us a seva to do. And when we do that seva, it should be done with the spirit to literally serve without any ego and not for dominance, not to dominate and not for any kind of sense of authority or dominance. It is not about that. It is actually the seva that we do is literally for us and for our own karmic cleansing. So this is very worthy to note. It's very noteworthy that, he said, the worthy leader, and of this, worthy leader has a desire to serve. So service is the biggest duty of a leader and not to dominate. You wanted Mukunda's position, but could not maintain it by merit. Return now to your earlier work as cook's assistant. So कब ऊंच नीच आती है लाइफ में पता नहीं चलता, पर अपनी ईगो छोड़ के आओ और हम्बली काम करो, कोई भी काम गुरुजी का करो या दुनिया में जो भी काम होते हैं, तो that keeps our head grounded. After this humbling incident, Master resumed toward Kumar a former attitude of unwanted indulgence. Who can solve the mystery of attraction? In Kumar, our guru discovered a charming fount which did not spurt for the fellow disciples. Though the new boy was obviously Sri Yukteswar's favorite, I felt no dismay. Personal idiosyncrasies, possessed even by masters, lend a rich complexity to the pattern of life. My nature is seldom commandeered by a detail. I was seeking from Sri Yukteswar a more inaccessible benefit than an outward praise. How beautiful. So the inner inaccessible benefit is far more worthy than an outward praise. Kumar spoke venomously to me one day without reason. I was deeply hurt. Your head is swelling to the bursting point. I added a warning whose truth I felt intuitively. Unless you mend your ways, someday you will be asked to leave this ashram. Laughing sarcastically, Kumar repeated my remark to our guru, who had just entered the room. Fully expecting to be scolded, I retired meekly to a corner. Maybe Mukunda is right. Master's reply to the boy came with unusual coldness. I escaped without castigation. A year later, Kumar set out for a visit to his childhood home. He ignored the quiet disapproval of Sri Yukteswar, who never authoritatively controlled his disciples' movements. On the boy's return to Serampur in a few months, a change was unpleasantly apparent. Gone was the stately Kumar with serenely glowing face. Only an undistinguished peasant stood before us who had lately acquired a number of evil habits. Master summoned me and broken-heartedly discussed the fact that the boy was now unsuited to the monastic hermitage life. Mukunda, I will leave it to you to instruct Kumar to leave the ashram tomorrow. I can't do it. Tears stood in Sri Yukteswar's eyes, but he controlled himself quickly. The boy would never have fallen to these depths had he listened to me and not gone away to mix with undesirable companions. Jaisi sangat, vaisi rangat, as Guruji used to say, achhi company mein raho, because it is the company that makes the man. He has rejected my protection. The callous world must be his guru still. How beautiful. So, I like this. The serenely glowing face is what we all ask for when we come to Guruji. I remember myself asking for that glow. So this is what happens when we are in his sharan and we are sitting in his fold. He will always maintain that glow, and he'll brighten the glow within each one of us, his sangat, who surrenders to him. And therefore that constant protection is bound to be there. Kumar's departure brought me no elation. Sadly, I wondered how one with power to win a master's love could ever respond to cheaper allures. Enjoyment of wine and sex are rooted in the natural man and require no delicacies of perception for their appreciation. Sense wiles are comparable to the evergreen Olida. Fragrant with its multicolored flowers, every part of the plant is poisonous. The land of healing lies within, radiant with that happiness, blindly sought in 1,000 misdirections. Keen intelligence is two-edged. Master once remarked in reference to Kumar's brilliant mind, it may be used constructively or destructively like a knife, either to cut the boil of ignorance or to decapitate oneself. Intelligence is rightly guided only after the mind has acknowledged the inescapability of spiritual law. So our mind has the power to either destructively cut like a knife or cut the boil of ignorance. So it is really how we apply our mind, how we use our mind. Our mind is the powerful tool that we have all been given with, is either has the ability to elevate us or to make us engage in kind of base activities. My guru mixed freely with men and women disciples, treating all as his children, perceiving their soul equality. He showed no distinction or partiality. In sleep, you do not know whether you're a man or a woman, he said. Just as a man impersonating a woman does not become one, so the soul impersonating both man and woman has no sex. The soul is pure, changeless, image of God. How beautiful. Sri Yukteswara never avoided or blamed women as objects of seduction. Men, he said, were also a temptation to women. I once inquired of my guru why a great ancient saint had called women the door to hell. A girl must have proved very troublesome to his peace of mind in his early life. My guru answered caustically. Otherwise, he would have denounced not woman, but some imperfection in his own self-control. If a visitor dared to relate a suggestive story in the hermitage, Master would maintain an unresponsive silence. Do not allow yourself to be thrashed by the provoking whip of a beautiful face, he told the disciples. How can sense slaves enjoy the world? Its subtle flavors escape them while they grovel in primal mud. All nice discriminations are lost to the man of elemental lusts. Students seek to escape from the dualistic Maya delusion received from Sri Yukteswara patient and understanding counsel. Just as the purpose of eating is to satisfy hunger, not greed, so the sex instinct is designed for the propagation of the species according to natural. Page no, please. Propagation of the species according to natural law, never for the kindling of insatiable longings. He said, destroy wrong desires now, otherwise they will follow you after the astral body is torn from its physical casing. Even when the flesh is weak, the mind should be constantly resistant. If temptation assails you with cruel force, overcome it by impersonal analysis and indomitable will. Every natural passion can be mastered. Conserve your powers. Be like the capacious ocean, absorbing within all the tributary rivers of the senses. Small yearnings are openings in the reservoir of your inner peace, permitting healing waters to be wasted in the desert soil of materialism. The forceful, activating impulse of wrong desire is the greatest enemy to the happiness of man. Roam in the world as a lion of self-control. See that the frogs of weakness don't kick you around. How strange that they mention a frog. In humor, in jest, last night I was entering my room and I see a frog, literally a frog hopping in my room. So whatever we think of comes in the book. So this is funny. So the frogs of weakness don't kick you around. They kicked me around and I managed to throw him out. The devotee is finally freed from all instinctive compulsions. He transforms his need for human affection into inspiration for God alone. How beautiful. So we have the ability to transform. And even when, the 7 deadly sins, as all of you know, and the 5, of course, the vices, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Ankar. If we use them in a positive direction towards moving towards God, then all is positive. So he transforms his need for human affection into aspiration for God alone, and love solitary because omnipresent. Sri Yukteswar's mother lived in the Rana Mahal district of Benares, where I had first visited my guru. Like they say, if you use your greed, if you have a predominant, trend or tendency in your body for greed, so that greed, instead of greed for food or material possessions, should be greed for knowledge, for wisdom, to read, to learn. So that's how we can convert every vice into virtue. Sri Yukteswar's mother lived in the Rana Mahal district of Benares, where I had first visited my guru. Gracious and kindly, she was yet a woman of very decided opinions. I stood on her balcony one day and watched mother and son talking together. In his quiet, sensible way, Master was trying to convince her about something. He was apparently unsuccessful, for she shook her head with great vigor. Nay, nay, my son, go away now. Your wise words are not for me. I am not your disciple. Sri Yukteswara backed away without further argument, like a scolded child. I was touched at his great respect for his mother, even in her unreasonable moods. She saw him only as her little boy and not as a sage. There was a charm about the trifling incident. It supplied a sidelight on my guru's unusual nature, inwardly humble and outwardly unbendable. Wow, that's how we all need to be, inwardly humble and outwardly unbendable. For the right reasons, of course. The monastic regulations do not allow a Swami to retain connection with worldly ties after their formal severance. He cannot perform the ceremonial family rites which are obligatory on the householder. Yet, Shankara, the ancient founder of the Swami order, disregarded the injunctions. At the death of his beloved mother, he cremated her body with heavenly fire, which he caused to spurt from his upraised hand. Sri Yukteswara also ignored the restrictions in a fashion less spectacular. When his mother passed on, he arranged the crematory services by the Holy Ganges in Benares and fed many Brahmins in conformance with age-old custom. The Shastric prohibitions were intended to help Swamis overcome narrow identifications. Shankara and Sri Yukteswara had wholly merged their beings in the impersonal spirit. They needed no rescue by rule. Sometimes, too, a master purposely ignores a canon in order to uphold its principle as superior to and independent of form. Thus, Jesus plucked ears of corn on the day of rest. To the inevitable critics, he said, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Outside of the scriptures, seldom was a book honored by Sri Yukteswara's perusal. Yet, he was invariably acquainted with the latest scientific discoveries and other advancements of knowledge. A brilliant conversationalist, he enjoyed an exchange of views on countless topics with his guests. My guru's ready wit and rollicking laugh enlivened every discussion. Often grave, Master was never gloomy. To seek the Lord, one need not disfigure his face, he would remark. Remember, the finding God will mean the funeral of all sorrows. Among the philosophers, professors, lawyers, and scientists who came to the hermitage, a number arrived for their first visit with the expectation of meeting an orthodox religionist. A supercilious smile or a glance of amused tolerance occasionally betrayed that the newcomers anticipated nothing more than a few pious platitudes. Yet, their reluctant departure would bring an expressed conviction that Sri Yukteswara had shown precise insight into their specialized fields. My guru ordinarily was gentle and affable to guests. His welcome was given with charming cordiality. Yet, inveterate egotists sometimes suffered an invigorating shock. They confronted in Master either frigid indifference or a formidable opposition, ice or iron. A noted chemist once crossed swords with Sri Yukteswara. The visitor would not admit the existence of God, inasmuch as science has devised no means of detecting him. So you have inexplicably failed to isolate the supreme power in your test tubes. Master's gaze was stern. I recommend an unheard of experiment. Examine your thoughts unremittingly for 24 hours, then wonder no longer at God's absence. A celebrated Pandit received a similar jolt. With ostentatious zeal, the scholars shook the ashram rafters with scriptural lore. Resounding passages poured from the Mahabharata and the Upanishads, the Bhasyas of Shankara. I am waiting to hear you. The Yukteswara's tone was inquiring, as though utter silence had reigned. The Pandit was puzzled. Quotations there have been in superabundance. Master's words convulsed me with mirth as I squatted in my corner at a respectful distance from the visitor. But what original commentary can you supply from the uniqueness of your particular life? What holy text have you absorbed and made your own? In what ways have these timeless truths renovated your nature? Are you content to be a hollow victrola, mechanically repeating the words of other men? I give up. The scholar's chagrin was comical. I have no inner realization. So likewise, this is so beautiful because there's no point in reading and listening to the Gurbani and attending satsangs if we come back empty. We need to really work on our inner vessels. We need to apply Guruji's teachings. The timeless truths which the Gurbani shares with us is for our inner transformation. So it is absolutely imperative to know that the satsangs are a classroom where we learn certain lessons. And then once we leave the classroom, it is important to apply those lessons in our daily life. And then the tests will come, of course, and the final examination is that we surrender each and every test at Guruji's lotus feet. For the first time, perhaps he understood that discerning placement of the comma does not atone for a spiritual coma. These bloodless pedants smell unduly of the lamp, my guru remarked after the departure of the chastened one. They prefer philosophy to be a gentle intellectual setting up exercise. Their elevated thoughts are carefully unrelated either to the crudity of outward action or to any scourging inner discipline. Master stressed on other occasions the futility of mere book learning. Like Guruji said, I am showing you God's presence in your lives in a very practical sense. So once you imbibe my teachings, then very practically your life will change. Again, in a very practical sense. Do not confuse understanding with a larger vocabulary, he remarked. Sacred writings are beneficial in stimulating desire for inward realization. If one stanza at a time is slowly assimilated, so beautiful. The sacred writings, sacred books that we read has to stimulate the desire for inward realization. So ultimately, even going to satsangs, it has to stimulate the desire for inward realization. So to remember him, like Guruji said, कि अंकार बैठ के भी मैनू एक घंटा जरूर याद किया करो और चलदे फिरदे याद किया करो चलदे फिरदे मेरे तुहाडे अंदर मेरा पाठ चलते रहना चाहिए. So Guruji's teachings are so practical, but we need to apply them. So continual intellectual study results in vanity and the false satisfaction of an undigested knowledge. Sri Yukteswara related one of his own experiences in scriptural edification. The scene was a forest hermitage in eastern Bengal, where he observed the procedure of a renowned teacher, Dabru Balav. His method, at once simple and difficult, was common in ancient India. Dabru Balav had gathered his disciples around him in a sylvan solitudes. The holy Bhagavad Gita was open before them. Steadfastly, they looked at one passage for half an hour, then closed their eyes. Another half hour slipped away. The master gave a brief comment. Motionless, they meditated again for an hour. Finally, the Guru spoke. Have you understood? Yes, sir. One of the group ventured this assertion. No, not fully. Seek the spiritual. Sorry. Have you understood? Yes, sir. One in the group ventured this assertion. No, not fully. Seek the spiritual vitality that has given these words the power to rejuvenate India century after century. Another hour disappeared in silence. The master dismissed the students and turned to Sri Yukteswara. Do you know the Bhagavad Gita? No, sir, not really, though my eyes and mind have run through its pages many times. Thousands have replied to me differently. The great sage smiled at master in blessing. If one busies himself with an outer display of scriptural wealth, what time is left for silent inward diving after the priceless pearls? So if we are constantly busy, I feel, with running, I met, not to judge because we are no one to judge, but I met this lady who told me that she goes to 4 satsangs in a day. And I said, my God, you're so busy with the outer, not that it's bad to go for 4 satsangs a day, but I said, when do you get time for the silent inward diving towards the priceless pearls that lie within us? So sitting in silence with ourselves for introspection and reflection is absolutely imperative to absorb and assimilate the Shabad that we have learned or listened to in the satsangs. So that giving time in solitude is absolutely imperative to our growth. Sri Yukteswar directed the study of his own disciples by the same intensive method of one-pointedness. Wisdom is not assimilated with the eyes, but with the atoms, he said. When your conviction of a truth is not merely in your brain, but in your being, you may be dividendly vouch for its meaning. He discouraged any tendency a student might have to construe book knowledge as a necessary step to spiritual realization. It is all practical. See, spiritual realization will come through book knowledge as well, but ultimately it's about practicing the teachings of being compassionate, being humble, being, part of a shared humanity, and being kind and generous with people. That is our true prayer. That is our true religion, humility and humanity. The rishis wrote, and service, of course. And I must not forget, Dan Punna, Guruji used to say, Daswant Jarur Detta Karo. It all brings about a lot of humility in us. The rishis wrote in one sentence Prabandhatis that commentators, scholars, busying themselves over for generations. He remarked, endless literary controversy is for sluggard minds. What more liberating thought than God is, nay, God, but man does not easily return to simplicity. And this is exactly what Guruji came to teach us, which is so, it seems to be so difficult for us to convert our complex, uncomplicated lives and our minds, complicated minds, to simplicity, to the absolute simplicity that Guruji came to return us to. It is seldom God for him, but rather learned pomposities. His ego is pleased that he can grasp such erudition. So again, it is not the theory, it's the practical that matters. Men who are pridefully conscious of high worldly position were likely, in Master's presence, to add humility to their other possessions. A local magistrate once arrived for an interview at the seaside hermitage in Puri. The man, who held a reputation for ruthlessness, had it well within his power to oust us from the ashram. I cautioned my guru about the despotic possibilities, but he seated himself with an uncompromising air, but did not rise to greet the visitor. Slightly nervous, I squatted near the door. The man had to content himself with a wooden box. My guru did not request me to fetch a chair. There was no fulfillment of the magistrate's obvious expectation that his importance would be ceremoniously acknowledged. A metaphysical discussion ensued. The guest blundered through misinterpretations of the scriptures. As his accuracy sank, his ire rose. Do you know that I stood first in the MA examination? Reason had forsaken him, but he could still shout. Mr. Magistrate, you forget that this is not your courtroom, Master replied evenly. From your childish remarks, I would have surmised that your college career was unremarkable. A university degree in any case is not remotely related to Vedic realization. Saints are not produced in batches every semester like accountants. After a stunned silence, the visitor laughed heartily. This is my first encounter with a heavenly magistrate, he said. Later, he made a formal request, couched in the legal terms which were evidently part and parcel of his being, to be accepted as probationary disciple. My guru personally attended to the details connected with the management of his property. Unscrupulous persons on various occasions attempted to secure possession of Master's ancestral land. With determination and even by instigating lawsuits, Sri Yukteswar outwitted every opponent. He underwent these painful experiences from a desire never to be a begging guru or a burden on his disciples. His financial independence was one reason why my alarmingly outspoken master was innocent of the cunnings of diplomacy. Unlike those teachers who have to flatter their supporters, my guru was impervious to the influences, open or subtle, of others' wealth. Never did I hear him ask or even hint for money for any purpose. His hermitage training was given free and freely to all disciples. An insolent court deputy arrived one day at the Serampur ashram to serve Sri Yukteswar with a legal summons. A disciple named Kanai and myself were also present. The officer's attitude towards Master was offensive. I will do you good to leave the shadows of your hermitage and breathe the honest air of a courtroom. The deputy grinned contemptuously. I could not contain myself. Another word of your impudence and you will be on the floor. I advanced threateningly. You wretch! Ganai's shout was simultaneous with my own. Dare you bring your blasphemies into the sacred ashram? But Master stood protectingly in front of his abuser. Don't get excited over nothing. This man is only doing his rightful duty. The officer, dazed at his varying reception, respectfully offered a word of apology and sped away. Amazing it was to find that a master with such a fairy will could be so calm within. He fitted the Vedic definition of a man of God, softer than the flower, where kindness is concerned, stronger than the thunder, where principles are at stake. How beautiful. So this is how we need to be softer than a flower, where kindness is concerned, stronger than thunder, where principles are at stake. How beautiful. There are always those in this world who, in Browning's words, endure no light, bring themselves obscure. An outsider occasionally berated Sri Yukteswar for an imaginary grievance. My imperturbable guru, listened politely, analyzing himself to see if any shred of truth lay within the denunciation. These scenes would bring to my mind one of Master's inimitable observations. Some people try to be tall by cutting off the heads of others. The unfailing composure of a saint is impressive beyond any sermon. He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city. So who is slow to react, basically, is better than the mighty, and he that rules over his spirit is mightier than taking over a city. I often reflected that my majestic master could easily have been an emperor or world-shaking warrior had his mind been centered on fame or worldly achievement. He had chosen instead to storm those inner citadels of wrath and egotism whose fall is the height of man. Can I go on? It's a very short chapter, if I may caution everyone with joy. It's only like three pages or something. Okay, so this is chapter. I hope you enjoyed that. There was a lot of wisdom in that, and a lot of again parallels which we can draw with Guruji. So much beautiful practical teaching. So here we go. Without further ado, chapter 13, the sleepless saint. Please permit me to go to the Himalayas. I hope in unbroken solitude to achieve continuous divine communion. I actually once addressed these ungrateful words to my master, seized by one of the unpredictable delusions which occasionally assail the devotee. I felt a growing impatience with hermitage duties and college studies. A feebly extenuating circumstance is that my proposal was made when I had been only 6 months with Sri Yukteswara. Not yet had I fully surveyed his towering statue. So this is so relatable again. I remember sitting with Guruji and my brother. He goes twice a year to Vaishno Devi. So I was sitting with Guruji and I just said, Guruji, main bhi jaun Vaishno Devi. And very casually and very benignly, I would say, very, he never raised his voice as such. So he just looked at me, he said, ki lod hai? ਇੱਥੇ ਹੀ ਤਾਂ ਬੈਠੀ ਹੈ ਮਾਤਾ सब कुछ ਇੱਥੇ ही है जो आपने ढूंढना है वो यहीं पे है जिस नजरिया से जो आपको जिस फॉर्म में आपको मानना है वो गुरु जी में ही दिखेगा चाहे आप गुरु नानक जी को ढूंढो चाहे शिरडी साईं बाबा को ढूंढो वो सब कुछ एक ही ज्योत है there are lamps so many but the light is one the jyot is ek so many hillmen live in the Himalayas yet possess no God perception. My guru's answer came slowly and simply. Wisdom is better sought from a man of realization than from an inert mountain. Ignoring master's plain hint that he and not a hill was my teacher, I repeated my plea. Sri Yukteswara vouchsafed no reply. I took his silence for consent, a precarious interpretation readily accepted at one's convenience. In my Calcutta home that evening, I busied myself with travel preparations. Tying a few articles inside a blanket, I remembered a similar bundle. surreptitiously dropped from my attic window a few years earlier. I wondered if this were to be another ill-starred flight toward the Himalayas. The first time my spiritual elation had been high, tonight, conscience smote heavily at thought of leaving my guru. The following morning, I sought out Bihari Pandit, my Sanskrit professor at Scottish Church College. Sir, you have told me of your friendship with a great disciple of Lari Maharshi. Please give me his address. Please give me his address. You mean Ram Gopal Muzumdar? I call him the sleepless saint. He is always awake in an ecstatic consciousness. His home is in Rambajpur, near Tarakeswar. I thanked the Pandit and entrained immediately for Tarakeswar. I hope to silence my misgivings by ringing a sanction for the sleepless saint to engage myself in lonely Himalayan meditation. Bihari's friend, I heard, had received illumination after many years of Kriya Yoga practice in isolated caves. At Tarakeshwar, okay, I've got it now, Tarakeshwar. Okay, at Tarakeshwar, I approached a famous shrine. Hindus regard it with the same veneration that Catholics give to the Lord's sanctuary in France. Innumerable healing miracles have occurred in Tarakeshwar, including one for a member of my family. I sat in the temple there for a week. My eldest aunt once told me, observing a complete fast, I prayed for the recovery of your uncle's Sarada from a chronic malady. On the 7th day, I found a herb materialized in my hand. Wow. I made a brew from the leaves and gave it to your uncle. His disease vanished at once and has never reappeared. That is the, manifestation of absolute faith. Faith always has to be absolute. Unwavering, infallible, stubborn, obstinate. It has to be unwavering. I entered the sacred Tara Keswar shrine. The altar contains nothing but a round stone. Its circumference, beginningless and endless, makes it aptly significant for the infinite. Cosmic abstractions are not alien even to the humblest Indian peasant. He has been accused by Westerners, in fact, of living on abstractions. My own mood at the moment was so austere that I felt disciplined to bow before the stone symbol. God should be sought, I reflected, not only within the soul. I left the temple without genuflection and walked briskly toward the outlying village of Ranbajpur. My appeal to a passerby for guidance caused him to sink into long cogitation. When you come to a crossroad, turn right and keep going, he finally pronounced oracularly. Obeying the directions, I wended my way alongside the banks of a canal. Darkness fell. The outskirts of the jungle village were alive with winking fireflies and the howls of nearby jackals. The moonlight was too faint to supply my reassurance. I stumbled on for 2 hours. Welcome clang of a cowbell. My repeated shouts eventually brought a peasant to my side. I am looking for Ram Gopal Babu. No such person lives in our village. The man's tone was surly. You're probably a lying detective. Hoping to allay suspicion in his politically troubled mind, I touchingly explained my predicament. He took me to his home and offered a hospitable welcome. Ranbajpur is far from here, I remarked, at the crossroad. You should have turned left, not right. My earlier informant, I thought sadly, was a distinct menace to travelers. After a relishable meal of coarse rice, lentil dal, and curry of potatoes with raw bananas, I retired to a small hut adjoining the courtyard. In the distance, villagers were singing to the loud accompaniment of mridangas and cymbals. Sleep was inconsiderable that night. I prayed deeply to be directed to the secret yogi, Ram Gopal. As the first streaks of dawn penetrated, the physios of my dark room, I set out for Ranbajpur. Crossing rough paddy fields, I trudged over sickled stumps of the prickly plant and mounds of dried clay. An occasionally met peasant would inform me, invariably, that my destination was only a crochet 2 miles. In 6 hours, the sun traveled victoriously from horizon to meridian, but I began to feel that I would ever be distant from Ranbajpur by 1 crochet. At mid-afternoon, my world was still an endless paddy field. Heat pouring from the voidless sky was bringing me to near collapse. As a man approached at leisurely pace, I hardly dared utter my usual question, lest it summon the monotonous. Just a crochet. The stranger halted beside me. Short and slight, he was physically unimpressive, save for an extraordinary pair of piercing dark eyes. I was planning to leave Rambajpur, but your purpose was good, so I waited you. He shook his finger in my astounded face. Aren't you clever to think that, unannounced, you could just pounce on me? That Professor Bihari had no right to give you my address. Considering that introduction of myself would be mere verbosity in the presence of his master, I stood speechless, somewhat hurt at my reception. His next remark was abruptly put. Tell me, where do you think God is? Why, he's within me and everywhere. I doubtless looked as bewildered as I felt. All pervading, huh? The saint chuckled. Then why, young sir, did you fail to bow before the infinite in the stone symbol at the Tara Keshwar temple yesterday? Your pride caused you the punishment of being misdirected by the passerby who was not bothered by fine distinctions of left and right. Today, too, you have had a fairly uncomfortable time of it. I agreed wholeheartedly, wonderstruck that an omniscient eye hid within the unremarkable body before me. Healing strength emanated from the yogi. I was instantly refreshed in the scorching field. The devotee inclines to think his path to God is the only way. He said, yoga through which divinity is found within is doubtless the highest road. So Lahari Mahasaya has told us. But discovering the Lord within, we soon perceive him without. Holy shrines at Tara, Keshwar, and elsewhere are rightly venerated as nuclear centers of spiritual power. The saint's censorious attitude vanished. His eyes became compassionately soft. He patted my shoulder. Young yogi, I see you are running away from your master. He has everything you need, so you must return to him. Mountains cannot be your guru. Ram Gopal was repeating the same thought which Sri Yukteswar had expressed at our last meeting. It happens so many times that Guruji says something to us, or he has said something in the past, and we need a validation. Today, we probably need a validation, which, sometimes we do. And we will meet a Sangat, or we will meet somebody, and they will repeat the exact same words. There are no mediators between you and your Guru, as Guruji said, apna direct connection banao, but he certainly validates. Masters are under no cosmic compulsion to limit their residence. My companion glanced at me quizzically. The Himalayas in India and Tibet have no monopoly on saints. What one does not trouble to find within will not be discovered by transporting the body hither and yon. As soon as the devotee is willing to go even to the ends of the earth for spiritual enlightenment, his guru appears nearby. So when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and he can appear anywhere. You don't have to run helter-skelter anywhere, because once Guruji knows that you're ready to climb the spiritual ladder, to climb one more rung, and we are climbing gradually, hopefully, and then our Guruji holds our hand and he appears anywhere in any form to help us with our spiritual journey. But there has to be that, enthusiasm in us, that zest and that willingness to go within, because it's not easy. It's easy to stay outward than go inward. I silently agreed, recalling my prayer in the Banaras Hermitage, followed by the meeting with Sri Yukteswara in a crowded lane. Are you able to have a little room where you can close the door and be alone? Yes. I reflected that this saint descended from the general to the particular with disconcerting speed. That is your cave. The yogi bestowed on me a gaze of illumination which I have never forgotten. That is your sacred mountain. That is where you will find the kingdom of God. His simple words instantaneously banished my lifelong obsession for the Himalayas. In a burning paddy field, I awoke from the multicolous dreams of eternal snows. Young sir, your divine thirst is laudable. I feel great love for you. Ram Gopal took my hand and led me to a quaint hamlet. The adobe houses were covered with coconut leaves and adorned with rustic entrances. The saint seated me on the umbrageous bamboo platform of his small cottage. After giving me sweetened lime juice and a piece of rock candy, he entered his patio and assumed the lotus posture. In about 4 hours, I opened my meditative eyes and saw that the moonlit figure of the yogi was still motionless. As I was sternly reminding my stomach that man does not live by bread alone, Ram Gopal approached me. I see you are famished. Food will be ready soon. A fire was kindled under a clay oven on the patio. Rice and dal were quickly served on a large banana leaves. My host courteously refused my aid in all cooking chores. The guest is God. Yeah, the guest is God. A Hindu proverb has commanded devout observance from time immemorial. In my later world travels, I was charmed to see that a similar respect for visitors is manifested in rural sections of many countries. The city dwellers finds a keen edge of hospitality blunted by superabundance of strange faces. The mats and men seemed remotely dim as I squatted by the yogi in the isolation of the tiny jungle village. The cottage room was mysterious with a mellow light. Ram Gopal arranged some torn blankets on the floor for my bed and seated himself on a straw mat. Overwhelmed by spiritual magnetism, I ventured a request. Sir, why don't you grant me a samadhi? Day one, I would be glad to convey the divine contact, but it is not my place to do so. The saint looked at me with half-closed eyes. Your master will bestow that experience shortly. Your body is not tuned just yet. As a small lamp cannot withstand excessive electrical voltage, so your nerves are unready for the cosmic current. If I gave you the infinite ecstasy right now, you would burn as if every cell were on fire. So same way in Guruji's words, he used to say, Agar main 60 watt de bulb vich main 100 watt di energy paa danga, to oh bulb fat jayega. In a 60 watt bulb, if I put 100 watt, which is darshan of divinity, to wo bulb fat jayega. We don't have the capacity to withstand excessive divine electrical energy, the voltage. We are not ready. So when we are ready, then only the Guru gives us the divine darshan. You are asking illumination from me, the yogi continued musingly, while I am wondering, inconsiderable as I am, and with little meditation I have done, if I have succeeded in pleasing God, and what worth I may find in his eyes at the final reckoning. So, have you not been single-handedly seeking God for a long time? I have not done much. Bihari must have told you something of my life. For 20 years, I occupied a secret grotto, meditating 18 hours a day. Then I moved to a more inaccessible cave and remained there for 25 years, entering the yoga union for 20 hours daily. I did not need sleep, for I was ever with God. My body was more rested in the complete calmness of the superconsciousness than it could be by the partial peace of the ordinary subconscious state. The muscles relaxed during sleep, but the heart, lungs, and circulatory system are constantly at work. They get no rest. In superconsciousness, the internal organs remain in a state of suspended animation, electrified by the cosmic energy. By such means, I have found it unnecessary to sleep for years. The time will come when you too will dispense with sleep. My goodness, you have meditated for so long and yet are unsure of the Lord's favor? I gazed at him in astonishment. Then what about us poor mortals? Well, don't you see, my dear boy, that God is eternity itself? To assume that one can fully know him by 45 years of meditation is rather a preposterous expectation. Babaji assures us, however, that even a little meditation saves one from the dire fear of death and after-death states. Do not fix your spiritual ideal on a small mountain, but hitch it to the star of unqualified divine attainment. If you work hard, you will get there. Enthralled by the prospect, I asked him for further enlightening words. He related a wondrous story of his first meeting with Lari Mashe, Guru Babaji. Around midnight, Ram Gopal fell into silence, and I lay down on my blankets. Closing my eyes, I saw flashes of lightning. The vast space within me was a chamber of molten light. I opened my eyes and observed the same dazzling radiance. The room became a part of that infinite vault which I beheld with interior vision. Why don't you go to sleep? Sir, how can I sleep in the presence of lightning blazing, whether my eyes are shut or open? You are blessed to have this experience. The spiritual radiations are not easily seen. The saint added a few words of affection. At dawn, Ram Gopal gave me rock candies and said I must depart. I felt such reluctance to bid him farewell that tears coursed down my cheeks. I will not let you go empty-handed, the yogi spoke tenderly. I will do something for you. He smiled and looked at me steadfastly. I stood rooted to the ground, peace rushing like a mighty flood through the gates of my eyes. I was instantaneously healed of a pain in my back, which had troubled me intermittently for years. Renewed, bathed in a sea of luminous joy, I wept no more. After touching the saint's feet, I sauntered into the jungle, making my way through its tropical tangle until I reached Tarakeshwar. There, I made a second pilgrimage to the famous shrine and prostrated myself fully before the altar. The round stone enlarged before my inner vision until it became the cosmical spheres, ring within ring, zone after zone, all dowered with divinity. I entrained happily. An hour later for Calcutta, my travels ended, not in the lofty mountains, but in the Himalayan presence of my master. Jai Guruji. And you know, this is what, even when Guruji heals us, even today when he heals us of something, back pain, it could be anything, headache, constant, recurrent headaches, we don't notice it immediately, but in hindsight we realize कि ओ गुरुजी ने ये भी हमारा ठीक कर दिया. जब उनकी मेहर होती है तो he can heal us in a moment, at a moment's notice. पर वो मेहर होनी चाहिए, and वो मेहर के लिए stay connected and keep loving him. Be God loving, as he said, and not God fearing. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity, and thank you.
Thank you, Auntie. Today it's been a really amazing reading and we've learned a lot. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. See you tomorrow. Looking forward.
Yes, Auntie. See you tomorrow. Thank you, Sangaji, for joining.